Hello, friend, and welcome to Mom Babes, where every mom is a babe. And if you're like, Christina, I don't feel like a babe because
I don't have it all figured out, and it looks like all my friends do.
That's a good one. Then this channel is especially for you. I make videos for moms who are creatives, and if you're like, I'm not a creative, that's a lie, because raising a live human being is the most creative thing that there is. I would love it if you would subscribe to the channel, come hang out with me every Thursday, and if you ding the bell, you can get notified each time I release a new video. Thank you so much. So today we're doing a super fun episode that I've been so excited about for a long time. This is my friend Lindsay.
Hi.
Lindsay and I met in college, which was 17 years ago. We did the math. That was our freshman year, so you can figure out how old we are now.
Mid-30s.
Yeah, we're in our mid-30s. The thing that I am super excited to talk with Lindsay about is friendship. Friendship is something that is obviously important to both of us since we're still friends. And I think as women, one of the pillars in your life, how we met as friends, like kind of our story. Actually, the first time I met Lindsay, I did not like her. And she knows this, but it was very petty. We both were in theater school together, and both were theater majors. And I think my freshman year, first semester, I got a lead role. And then the role that I wanted, spring semester, Lindsay got cast in that role. So I was immediately like, I don't like her. But then as I got to know her, I couldn't resist her charm, and we became great friends. But initially I was like, who's this girl that got the role?
And the funny thing is, and this is, I think, how it works when you're young and ambitious, I immediately wanted to be her friend as I just switched majors, saw that she was the lead in the play.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, I gotta work my way up, and this girl's already there.
Except that she also got the lead. So anyways, it's just funny because Lindsay and I are such good friends now, but it started as like a little like competition thing.
Oh, it did, yeah.
Since freshman year, friends all through college, all 4 years. And then after school, we both went our separate ways. You went to Austin, that's where you're from, and then I went back to California, which is where I'm from, and then we would meet up every February, remember that, those first few years, to do grad school auditions, and we both wanted to go to grad school, and it became this super fun adventure to look forward to, and this travel trip, because you have to prepare these monologues, and we always went to Chicago. You could do New York, Chicago, or San Francisco, I think. But we always went to Chicago, and it was fun to meet there and do these auditions together and also go to restaurants and whatever. So that was a fun thing that we did. And then as time went on, we didn't see each other as much. But then eventually, Lindsay moved to LA, so then she became much closer, and we were able to spend a lot more time together, which has been such a treat. Is there anything else? Did I miss any other major points?
No, it was really, I mean, in the time, I will say, that I was in Austin, and she was in LA and in the area, we really did maintain a very strong friendship through phone calls.
Yeah.
We were chatting it up.
For like hours. I remember, I have this specific visual memory because I lived with my grandma at the time and her cul-de-sac, and I remember being outside at night on the phone. I always walk when I'm on the phone, but I was physically like pacing like all the way around the cul-de-sac, just like talking to you for probably, I don't know, hour and a half, 2 hours or whatever. But that was pretty normal, probably like at least, I don't know, once a month, once every 2 months. Once a month. We were checking in with each other, like a deep check-in. And that was probably helpful during those years.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to say. It was like once a month because you could hear that first part and like have this unrealistic, shattering, moment like, oh, me and my friends, like they were talking every day. No, we weren't talking every day. No. We would catch up like once a month, have a really long 2-hour convo, spill out our guts, and then go about our business. But it was enough to like keep that friendship there and alive, and like really felt like we were still friends and connected when we did talk.
And we were honest with each other. We weren't really shallow. I mean, it's probably why we are such deep friends. We weren't really shallow about our conversation, but I remember saying like, this is frustrating to me, or this is what I'm struggling with. And I think prayer too was a big part of our friendship, and praying for each other and helping each other through, I mean, your 20s are just rough, right? Like there's kind of a lot going on. So
our deepest, honestly, the reason that we really stayed friends, I believe, was our deepest connection has always been Christ. It's always been centered on like, yes, like we love a lot of the same things, but Jesus, really like praying and being there for each other is really what connected us throughout all the years, no matter what was going on.
Yeah.
And I think when you have friendships that are centered on Christ, if you do believe in Jesus, then your relationships really go to a deeper level because you're able to be honest quicker. You've got each other's backs quicker. You'll pray together, and that is a huge part of what allowed us to be connected like sisters.
Yeah, I know. We always joked you were my sister from another mister, also because she has a sibling named Christina. So
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
I'm your other Christina. So that was always a funny joke. Lindsay and I do have quite a bit of common, which I think is lucky. You don't always, like, I think it's good to have a variety and diversity of friends, but we do happen to, you know, both have a strong faith, and then also we both love acting, and then we were even talking about this today. Oh, which, by the way, the reason we're here right now is Lindsay and I decided to do a girls trip. Ooh, girls weekend. So this is something that I've actually been thinking about for a long time, and I want to encourage you to do with at least one or many of your friends, but it's been so fun. So we are here in the beautiful city of Santa Barbara, and we have just basically been talking for the entire time so far. And we got to go rollerblading by the beach.
To breakfast.
Yes, we rollerbladed to breakfast and went to this super girly, cute little breakfast place with pink walls and pink umbrellas, and had amazing food and coffee, and anyways, like all the girly things. Yes, we have all these things in common, but we also do things like this where we prioritize spending time together. And I remember, like, there was a time when I was like, especially having little kids, I know that some moms feel this way, where you're like, I can't do a trip with anyone. I have all these responsibilities, and it is actually a lot of work and a lot of logistics to make something like this happen. It is so life-giving to your friendships, to your relationships, but I get that it takes planning. So to give you some context, we started talking about this trip like
4 months ago.
at least, yeah, like quite a few months ago, because, you know, you have work schedules and you have budgeting, and we did do something. I mean, people can get crazy with girl trips, but we did something in state. It's only like 2 hours away from the general area where we are, and you know, I like shop deals for the hotel, and I mean, we're not doing any crazy excursions, so some things like to think about as you're like, oh, this looks so fun that Christine and Lindsay got to do this trip. How could I actually make that doable in my life? Is starting with, and we would do, like, before we ever did this trip, we would just do dinner. Like, we would just meet up for dinner. And so if you're at a point where you're like, oh, I want to have girl time, but a trip seems like unattainable, you can start just like, hey, let's go to dinner. And I think we did that so much, and eventually I was like, hey, let's try to do this trip, you know, to see what this happens. And even, like, you know, we invited more people and they weren't able to come, but we were still like, we're just gonna go and enjoy the time that we have. Part of what I want to say is encourage you to just start thinking about it. Think about the type of people that you would enjoy spending time with, those friendships you want to invest in, and what the budget is. And everyone's at a different frame of budget, and what is achievable within that budget. And also, obviously, for moms, the childcare is a big thing, and finding quality childcare. But even if that is a pain point for you right now, if you can't find a babysitter that'll watch the kids overnight or something like that, like, you know, I was able to be like, hey, hubby, just take the kids. But if you don't have that kind of a situation, at least you can do like a lunch or a dinner or something to invest in your friendship.
From a different perspective as well, like, I've never been married and I don't have kids.
Oh, that also, yeah. Like,
So I also, like, I will not even tread on like what it's like to be a mother, because I don't know.
Yeah.
But what I do know, to encourage you, like, don't be afraid to lean on your single friends. Like, in some areas of your life, it can be easy to idealize the single life, but your single friends are lonely. They're looking for an anchor, and they're really excited to hang out with their married friends too. So obviously we're not in town together.
Yeah.
But, like, if you were and you're like, I don't have time to leave the house right now, don't underestimate the fact that your single friend would love to come over and hang out with you and, like, watch a movie with you, like, you know, help with the kids a little. Like, that's not something that, like, you might be like, oh, that's boring and mundane, but it might, if you cannot get around friends and you're able to call your single friend, or your single friend, like, ask her to come over, like, it's not lame. Like, you're single, I would love that. Like, that's so
it.
fun.
I literally, like, don't even think about that, so I'm so glad you said something. But
like,
yeah,
that's not an invitation that where I would refuse. It's ever, I'd actually be like, oh, that would be so fun to hang out with Christina. I could help her cook dinner if her husband's out of town. We go like watch a movie, paint her nails. And maybe hopefully that's something that would,
Oh yeah.
you know,
Super fun. And especially if you sleep train your kids, I'll link to a sleep training video. When they go down, then you can have like party girl time, girl talk, whatever. Actually have adult conversation that's uninterrupted. But it's funny, I used to feel really self-conscious about having friends over that didn't have kids. I projected a lot because I often felt like kids were too much. And so I'm like, all my friends are going to think my kids are too much. They're not going to want to come over. I've realized now, I mean, it's been a minute, that that's not true. That actually the opposite is true. Your friends usually do want to invest in this new part of your life. And they understand like, oh, this is your life now. Like, I'm going to hop on board. And yeah, Lindsay is, you come to everything. I mean, we live like, what, an hour 45, almost 2 hours away. But like I had a murder mystery party and she drove out for that. So I think the theme, what we're hearing here is we kind of show up for each other. Not all the time, like we can't always do it. And I think there's an understanding there that we both have lives and goals, but we do touch base with each other. She comes to things and then I'll come to dinner with her and some other friends. We both put in the effort and then we both obviously made the effort to be here, you know, on this trip together. And if we can't do that, even a phone call is so enriching. I love every time I get off the phone with Lindsay, I feel life given, and just these friendships that you have that are longer, they have a perspective of you that, you know, new friends don't have. You should have new friends too. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying in each friendship, you're going to find different values and looking for those people that speak life into you. What you don't want is a friend that you like hang out with them and then afterwards you feel worse than you did before. That's
depleted.
Not a good friend.
Yeah, no.
But friends that are like supportive and life-giving, like you've been to me, those are ones that you want to pay attention to, and you want to do things like this, any kind of thing, to just invest and spend some time. What's the difference between like when you were meeting friends when you were younger and when you're meeting friends now?
I think when you're younger, you're very blasé about it. Like, you take it for granted. And the thing I notice now in my 30s is sometimes I have to break out of my shell because I can get very much in, like, my flow or routine, or it can be harder to feel like to put myself out there to meet people. Versus as a kid, you're like, oh, I'm going to this function, so I'll make friends. Or it's, like, top priority.
Yeah.
And as an adult, I think we need it, and we don't make it a top priority.
Yeah.
And I know I've even had to get better about it. Like, I have been for like a year now, this is vulnerable, but going to a new church, and for some reason I get in the habit of, I go to the service, and I love the Lord, I love meeting new people, and I go to church, and then the minute it's over, I slide out. And like, I don't think of myself that has trouble meeting people.
No, I'm actually very shocked because I did not think that was the situation. Lindsay's like a very happy, bubbly people person.
But for some reason,
I didn't know that.
I like slide out, and last couple of weeks I've been disciplining myself to text a friend to come with me,
that's cute.
Like, I've been like, you're gonna go to the coffee bar, you're gonna grab some coffee, and you're gonna stand around and smile and say hi to someone. And it's like so silly, but as an adult, I think it can be hard to be like, oh, I'll just go to my car, I'll run real quick, I'll get about my day, I've got things I should be doing. No. Like, I've been like, Lindsay, you need to meet people at your new church. You've been there for a year, you're not that new.
Yeah. You know some people though, I'm sure.
I do. But I could do better. I say that because some of you on that camera might relate.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's a weird thing, no matter if you're extroverted or introverted, it doesn't really matter. You'll go through seasons of your life where you want to, like, be in your shell, but it's actually, when you feel that way, you should do the opposite.
Yeah, it's funny because you talk about church, and I think about, like, just my house, like, how tempting it is to go inside, close the garage, like, even with just my very few neighbors that I may or may not even see, like, the opportunity to say hi to those people. I feel like it was so much harder for me to make friends, like, now than it was when I was college or early 20s. I felt like I was so open to that. Did you feel that way too? Or do you feel like it's kind of the same, just like new circumstances?
No, I think it's a lot harder. Because in college, we had all built-in social things. We lived together, like, you could meet so many people. And as an adult, you go to work, you come home, you get in your flow. I have found for myself, like, activities are helpful. And, like, I met a couple of really close new friends through going to another friend's vision board party in the new year, and I almost said no.
Really? Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
Yeah, I almost
but like
said
out of
no.
that, you made friends.
That's
the most random party I think I've ever heard of.
Three friends that I hang out with every week now.
Wow, that's cool.
And like, that was like a thing that I almost said no to. So I think things that seem little are really just not so little. So as an adult, like, don't knock something off because you think it's frivolous, because it might be connected. Because as a kid, you wouldn't think it's frivolous. You would think it was the most important thing you could do that week, going to a party. But as an adult, we're like, oh, that's an extra and I don't have time for that and I'm exhausted.
Yeah. I think the I'm tired thing that you hit on is so true. You're like, I feel like it was harder to make friends as an adult. Part of why school is so easy is because of the proximity, because you're physically, literally stuck in the same physical space with all these other people. And as you get a home or an apartment and you're physically separated, there's not as much opportunity. Whereas when you're in a dorm, you're just like, hey, just walk outside your door and there's all these people. So there's much more opportunity for social things. So you do have to be more intentional, I think. And I think our temperaments change. I think raging parties every night for most people in their 20s sounds way more exciting than it does in your 30s. You're just not as into that. Like, it seems like more of a chore. That's what it was. It was being tired. And also the fatigue of feeling like my schedule is already full. I'm already tired. How am I going to also have friends? That's just too much. But I think the unique thing about friendships is they actually refresh your life. The little bit of energy that you put in, whatever that looks like, whether it's having someone come over, meeting for dinner, talking on the phone, texting, FaceTime, whatever, that little bit re-energizes your life. That's been true.
And I think that's the key. Like, we understand the concept as adults of every penny counts. Like, if you're putting pennies in a jar over time, or every little cent that you save counts. But I think we forget in the bank account of friendship that we don't need, because of Instagram and all these things, you think you need these extravagant times to make connection work, but really, like, a 1 hour phone call once a month can make a difference. Like, in your friendship bank of your heart that you need filled, little things add up. And when you also deplete yourself of those little connections, that adds up. And then you get burnt out, you feel lonely and resentful in your heart because you're not connecting and filling that one space that feels frivolous but you really need.
Or you're looking at other people like, oh, they're having so much fun, must be nice for them, but you're also on the other end not doing anything to create those meaningful, relationships in your own life. So
to fill up your bank account of that part of you that was created for that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think specifically with girls, like my girlfriends are so powerful, and being able to understand and speak into your life and relate. And I mean, even Lindsay and I, we're in very different stages of life, but we have that friendship foundation where we can just go to the core of it. Like, when I'm like, hey Lindsay, how are you doing? It's not like, oh, I'm fine. Like, we don't ever talk that way to each other like you would to a stranger.
I think we were at breakfast and I just started crying.
No. Well, we talked a little bit before that, but you want to be friends with someone ultimately, like,
genuine.
That you can be real with and not have to hide things or not like be embarrassed about things or whatnot. And be honest for sure. You're so funny. It was literally like just a little like they didn't even fall. But you want someone that's going to hear your heart. So you said the activities, new friends is a good way. I've heard people make friends like mom groups or workout mom groups or Facebook groups. I've never done a Facebook group, but I hear there's a Facebook group for literally anything. And how cool to make a friend that's also into rock climbing or basket weaving or whatever thing that you're like, I love this. How cool would it be to meet someone who's also like, I love this, and also a friend. So that's also strategic. Right?
I will say, just for the moms in this group too, that could be like, well, it's good that you went to a vision board party, Lindsay. You're single. You didn't have anything holding you down. There were 2 moms at that party. It was an all girls event, and there were 4 kids total. And those kids, 2 of the kids were a little wild, and then 2 of them were like, chill. It didn't matter. We all had a blast, and all of us women were actually on board to kind of like paint with the kids. Like, we were doing crafts and stuff with them, and it did not deter the card party. It like added to the party.
That's so cool.
So, and it was a blast, and I just think I remember thinking those are the most adorable kids. Like, none of us were put off that those moms brought their kids. We had a blast. So, if obviously talk to the host, but like if the host doesn't care, we're not turned off by that. Like, everyone in the group it was like 20, 25 of us. No one was like, why did you bring your kid? We all loved it.
Yeah.
So I think that's also, if you feel comfortable in the structure of how you design your family culture with bringing your kids along, it's not a nuisance. We love it.
I think that's great. Yeah, especially if you're in a situation where it's hard to leave. I know everyone has different like family stuff going on, but yeah, that I would have never thought of that actually. It's very practical. Like, ask, like, is it okay if I bring my kids? What's cool about this from a mom's perspective is you're bringing your kids alongside your life, and then they're also learning from you. Oh, this was how my mom made friends. I know how to make friends, you know? So even though you're not like, this is how you make friends, child, they see, oh, my mom took me to these events. I was there. She still met these other people, and then they became friends. The cool thing about what you're talking about is it's not just for you, it's also a legacy of an idea for your children as well, which is so powerful. And I would I would never, I'm so like, probably a little in this mindset, but like, hey, can I bring my kids to your party? That's great though. I should start doing that. Start asking.
If you want to go and you want friends, like sometimes in every season of life, no matter what you're doing, if you're a mom or you're not, or you're a grandma, in order to get the things you want, there's always going to be an obstacle.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you have kids or you don't. Whatever your season is, there's always going to be an obstacle, and there's always something uncomfortable that you're going to have to face. So practically speaking, if you're a single mom, or you're a mom whose husband travels a lot, or you just don't have a lot of extra time because he's working all the time, whatever it looks like, you work all the time, you want to be around your kids, and you want friends, and you don't have that, think practically, like, it's going to be uncomfortable to ask someone if you can bring your kid, but if you need that tank filled, it's better to have that conversation and then meet women and have your kids loved on to make that trade. Everything we want, there's going to be a trade in life. If you want to work out, get stronger, you're going to be uncomfortable. If you want friends, you're going to feel uncomfortable branching out to make those friends. If your routine is being home all the time and you never have friends, you're going to have to do something different to get those friends. Phone calls, whatever it is, it just matters on whether it's a priority in your life or not. And if you're lonely enough, you'll find a way.
I will never be lonely. That is so powerful and so true. So true about not letting the obstacle be like, oh, then this wasn't meant to be, but just being like, well, how do we work around this is such a good way to approach things.
Or even ask one of your friends that you know has more time. It's also an awkward conversation, but like, if I lived in town and you called me and said, I want to go to this event, could you babysit? I would do it. Yeah. I have actually babysat for some of my married friends before, and I've been so excited to do it. Don't be afraid to ask. Even if you're like, well, I'd actually really rather hang out with my single friend. That could be the real thing too. It's actually, I'd rather just hang out with you. But like, if there's times when you need something, like, I'm the type of person that would be like, yes, let me come babysit. You need that time. Go. It's also an awkward conversation, but it's one that like some of us would be really like, okay, like I would do it.
And you don't know that until you have that conversation. So like, you may have friends that are like, that's not my thing, but you may have other friends that like love being around kids, and you won't know unless you ask. That's the other thing too that I think about. Like, as you get older, we recently made friends with some neighbors, and I talk about neighbors in another video. I can also link that. But I originally was thinking, these neighbors don't want to be my friend. I had this idea because they were both like PhD doctors and like seemed very introverted and just seemed like very private and weren't outside a lot. And I just had this idea that they wouldn't want to be our friends. They seem very like organized and together, and we're kind of like, hey everybody, like family time over here. But I actually, the opposite turned out to be true. Eventually we did invite them over for dinner, and now every other month we kind of swap hosting dinner, and it's something that's really doable in our life because they're right across the street. And then they can come over to our house while the kids are sleeping, and it's been really cool and very convenient when you're in this phase of little kids where you're at home a lot just by nature. But if I stuck to this idea of I don't think they would like me, then we would never have that relationship. We would have never formed that friendship with our neighbors. And so I think a lot of it is this idea of either I don't know if I'm going to like them because of XYZ, which is a whole other thing, or I don't think they will like me, which I feel like is probably more often what we think. Part of making those good friendships is overcoming that in the sense that you're like, you just ask. And I mean, I tried to do this again, like ask some other neighbors over for dinner and they said no. So you're going to get both. And that's part of meeting new friends, especially if you're like, well, it's great that you guys met in college and you have friends, but I just moved to a new place. Like, I've never had a lot of close friends. How do I meet friends? You know what I mean? So I always think, circle back to your old friends, like maybe friends you haven't talked to a while, even if they're not in the same physical space with you. Touching base with those people, these resources of, oh, hey, remember we did this? We haven't talked in a while. How are you doing? And just seeing what can sprout out of those friends. And also not limiting your mind to the types of people you can be friends with. Whether or not you think they're going to like you, you'll never know if you never start that conversation. I think a very practical thing that I used to do before kids was I'd ask people out, hey, you want to go get coffee? And so I felt like that was a good time to connect with somebody one-on-one, to say, hey, like, even if we were hanging out in a group or went to a party or whatever, like, hey, do you want to go get coffee? And I found that usually was coffee, either whether or not they even wanted to go, and then how, the coffee hangout went was an indicator of whether or not this, could be a good friend. Mm-hmm. But I'm sure there were times when people were like, or they never responded or whatever. And you can get, like, accept that rejection, or you can think like, oh, that's okay, they weren't for me, and move on to the next person. But if you let that one rejection stop you, you never get the other true friends. So I think our minds sometimes limit us as we get older, because we're a little beat up and more damaged. Whereas, I don't know, you look at kids on the playground, they're like, hey, you're a kid, I'm a kid, let's be friends. And then it's different as you get older.
No, and that rejection thing is real, especially as we get older. I think there's a lot of sensitivity around feeling.
Or you've had friendships that haven't gone great, or there's like, wounding there or whatever. And so you understand that opening up yourself to a new friend is also opening up yourself to potential like hurt too. But that's all relationships. And it's like, well, what are you going to do? Not have relationships? If you want good friends, you also have to be a good friend. And this is something Lindsay is very good at. She's very good at being like intentional and present with you, and that's something that I value, is reciprocity in the friendship. That's the other thing too, is I've been in friendships before where I feel like I'm pursuing and they're not. And so you're like, well, that's okay, and that could be a certain level of friendship, but let's also invest elsewhere. So it's like this difficult thing to navigate, because you're like, I want to be friends, but it's not as simple as, hey, let's just be friends. Because sometimes, like, you think this friend is your level 10 friend, but they think you're level 2 friend. So you're like not on the same level, and it's fine. You should have different levels of friends. Not everybody's going to be your bestie all the time, but just discovering, okay, we're like, we go out for drinks friends, and we're like, oh, let's sit down for a heart-to-heart coffee friends. And we're like, oh, we only hang out in group friends. And I think it's okay. It's good to have a variety.
I think that's real. And like, it's also one of those things, like, Christina has been an excellent friend in that she's extremely intentional. So it's finding friends that you share that same connection with, as far as like, I am a diehard for my friends, and Christina is even more diehard.
Oh,
like, she beats me.
Oh my god,
she beats me. Like, I think I'm the ride or die girl. No, Christina's the ride or die. So it's finding those friends that are willing to be like, I like the levels thing.
Yeah.
That are willing to meet you at your level, and like, that's different for every person too.
Yeah.
In the fact that not every person, like, some people keep everyone at a level 2, so they connect really deeply with someone that also meets with them on a level 2. So it's finding your kindred spirit that meets at that kind of friendship level.
Everyone's not super deep like us.
Yeah. So Christina and I are like level 10s.
We're
like
very deep.
But we're also very adventurous. So like it's that weird level of like zany and like I will tell you my deepest, darkest secret and you better tell me yours. And then like yesterday, we have these heart to hearts, we're like connecting, and then I'm like flipping her over a tree trying to teach her a handstand.
Which did not go well at all. And then when we first got into this room, we were so excited about the room. We had a Mary Kate and Ashley pillow fight.
Yes.
Which was really fun. So
like we're a good balance and friends of shallow and deep.
Mm-hmm.
And like genuinely.
Yeah, because you don't want to be deep all the time. That is a little exhausting.
That is a little exhausting. But I will say what keeps us friends is like both of us are not afraid to go there.
Yeah.
But with healthy respect, every person is different, and some people want to keep everyone at a level 2, and that's where they'll feel the most loved. Yeah. So finding just someone, whatever that is for you, that you can connect with, that makes you feel like it's reciprocity. Because some people are not level 10 people ever, and if you were to go level 10, that is not reciprocity.
They're like, okay.
They're like, listen, I don't do that with no one.
Yeah.
So it's finding your people, like that
point.
flare the way you flare. And obviously, we respect each other's differences. We're not the same person at all.
No.
But we have the same flair.
Well, we can enjoy the same things, and I think that's true of a lot of various personalities. Like even if your personalities are different, or even what you like is a little different, being able to still enjoy time with that person in various activities. You know, understanding that not everybody's going to be a level 10. That's so funny because I literally assume everyone is a level 10. They just don't share it. You know what I mean? Like everyone is this deep. They just like don't trust. And that's the other thing too. There is an element of trust in relationships. And I do think it's wise to fill out the waters and, I mean, not immediately trust someone with your deepest, darkest secret.
No.
But, you know, maybe like some more tender secrets, or like, you know, tell them things and see how they do with that information before you're like just jump in all the way. Because that could be painful too if you know, get really vulnerable with someone who is not, you know, going to respect what you've asked. If you're like, hey, don't tell anyone this, and then they tell everyone, that's like not the super best friend, I think, you would want in your life. You want people that you can trust, and that aren't gonna, you know, if you share something vulnerable, they're not gonna tell everybody about it. Which some of these things, and like I just assume like everyone is like this, but everyone is not like this. Like you have to understand that there is so much diversity and variety of how people perceive friendships, and it's so open that you need to know what you need and what you like, and also be open to maybe what you don't think you need or you don't think you like, and at least trying out those friendships too, I think surprises you.
I will say, now Christina was not this way, although she said she didn't like me at first. I will say in my adult years, some of my very best friends are people at first thought in my head I had no connection with. And they are my heart and best friends. That was not the case with you. I felt like we had an immediate connection. Yeah. But I will say some of my very best friends in these last 10 to 12 years have been people at first I was like, I don't really like you. And it wasn't that I was competitive with them. It was like, I don't think we have anything in common. And then the more I got to know them, I was like, you are the real deal. Like everything about you I like. It just took me a long time to realize what our connections were. But I think that's figuring out what are your values, and then your friendships will align out of that instead of just being surface level. Because if you are surface level in your friendships, then you aren't really learning probably a lot about yourself or your values. I think if you start to give people a chance that typically you're like, I don't feel like we have anything in common, you start to learn like the things you really value. Because my friends that are my best friends that I didn't think I liked at first because I didn't think we had anything in common, I started to become best friends with them because I started to learn the things that were really valuable to me, that were really valuable to them.
Like character qualities?
Character qualities, like loyalty, I realized was a big one for me. Like someone that's a ride or die hard, like practically one of my closest friends in my adult years that I just didn't feel a lot of connection with, like she would drive across town to pick up furniture when I didn't have furniture, and then we became like very best friends. Like I was like slowly over time like, whoa, this girl is the real deal. Or like she would pray for me, I would pray for her, or like I would go run an errand for her, and like we would have fun, and I was like, oh wait, loyalty, adventure, and Jesus are big qualities for me
Yeah.
of a friendship. And those are going to vary person to person.
Yeah.
But for me, I realize like someone that's practical, that will be willing to go as hard as I will in helping people, is an immediate friend. But on the surface level, maybe they will like things you don't like. They'll have a personality that you're not used to, that isn't the way you communicate at all. But if you take all of those surface level things, like the way that someone talks or the way that they physically act outside of your norm, their heart qualities, their character, you might actually become best friends with someone you were like, I had no clue.
Can I get an amen?
And it's weird because sometimes we don't think the way that someone walks or talks is surface level, or like their habits is surface level.
Yeah.
But honestly, it really is.
And there's so much miscommunication in how things are perceived. So you see someone and they always have like a grumpy face on, but you know they're just really focused on something. When they get focused, they have a grumpy face, but then you assume, oh, they're grumpy. It's like,
or they don't like me, and that's not the case.
Yeah, and they literally don't even know you're there. They're like, just like, I'm just focused on something.
Or sometimes, like I will say, I've also had a best friend in my older years where like the reason if I'm really honest, the reason that I thought I didn't want to be friends with her was because she had so many qualities I didn't, that I was a little intimidated.
Yeah.
And I think as women, that's like a hidden thing. I remember thinking like, I admired her, but I remember thinking, oh, we have nothing in common because she's good at all these things I'm not good at.
Interesting.
And it was very subconscious, but I realized it enough to be like, oh, I'm intimidated by her. Because she's someone I kind of want to be, but I'm not like at all.
Yeah.
And then we became like very best of friends.
So
once
cool.
I got past my intimidation.
Yeah.
And that's like real. As women, we can feel intimidated.
I think a lot of it is like headspace and whatnot, and just throwing yourself out there. Even like it was so cute. So I'm trying to do this women's Bible study. I'm like not in the phase of life where that's super perfect. It's a 6-week Bible study, and I think I've gone 2 weeks because just like kids and life and whatever. But I was like, I'm still gonna go. On the times that I can go, I'm gonna see what I can get out of it. And I showed up late, which I never do, but I was like, whatever, I'm gonna go even though I'm late. And they have this food there, so I was like eating some fruit like by the trash can because you can't take food inside. And she like just comes up and like starts talking to me. I'm like, she's like super nice and was like, oh, I like your cup thing. And then she was like, I have a monochrome beach one, and her name was Diana, and she's like Princess Diana.
Oh, that's cute.
And I was Christina, like Christina Aguilera. That's the nice thing too, is a lot of making friends is you do have to be the initiator, but every once in a while you get to be on the receiving end of how nice that someone came up and made the effort to connect with me. And I tried. I actually don't really struggle with initiating. I know some people do. It's just part of my personality. I don't really mind being the person that's like, hey, let's do this, because I am like kind of achievement oriented. So I'm like, let's get the thing done. I'll start the conversation. But even if you're not like that, doing those little steps, like Lindsay said, can be very like cringy and uncomfortable. But that's kind of part of it, is you can't just wait for whoever to come up and talk to you, because they might not come talk to you and they might not be like a good person. So you need to be selective and kind of practice taking the initiative. But that's hard.
I will say I can be an initiator, but I can also really struggle with initiating. And it's not out of not wanting to hang out with people, but it's out of, what if someone doesn't like my idea and they don't want to do it and they don't like it and they think it's silly. And I say that to say, because I can't be the only one that feels that way. So you procrastinate initiation because you're actually afraid to put your ideas out there and be rejected.
Yeah.
Or to think, what if it's not quality enough? Like, I am nervous to make the plans because what if it falls through in some sort of way, or my friend doesn't like that plan? Like, remember, it's teamwork. So if you come up with a plan, hopefully you have a friend that could be like, and could we do this? And be okay to take that adjustment too and work as a team.
That's good.
That will take you far. And it's never personal when someone says, like, actually, can we do this?
Actually, I don't like underwater scuba diving. Can we do something else?
It's teamwork. It's teamwork. And so, and I think putting yourself out there is a good thing to do.
Yeah.
And so, like, sometimes I found myself in the habit of relying on my friends that are very bold in their choices and just call you up, like, we're going to do this. And I'm like, okay, I'll do it. I can be bold. I have no problem with that. But when it comes to friendship, sometimes I'm like, oh, to take the lead is a little overwhelming.
It feels almost more scary to do that. I don't know, because we're both performers, actresses, but like to make a bold decision on stage or to do some other idea that's bold but it's not your idea versus something simple like saying hi to someone you don't know, like can almost be like more difficult, more scary, and
like I'm not introverted, but I can struggle in big environments with being the first to initiate.
Yeah.
A true like hi, like if someone if they see someone, I'm like, oh, maybe I'd want to be their friend. I think that's what happens to me sometimes in my new church is I'm like, well, it feels really awkward as an adult to be like, hey, what are you doing today? How's your day? And I'm like, I don't want to do this. I'm going to go to my car.
Yeah.
You know, versus
because that's the easier choice.
Yeah, it's the easier choice versus it's easier for me to be friendly quickly to like someone at the gas station because I don't actually have to stay there and have a conversation.
Ah.
You know, like, how was your day? Okay, good, I'll see you later. Versus if I'm at church or at a social gathering, like
there's a risk of an actual relationship, and so we're not even going to try.
Yeah, it could be awkward, or like, what if they don't want to talk to me?
And then I have to see them next week.
And I don't know what else to say. It's just
That's real, man. That's so real.
It's like a lot of head games that can happen as we get older.
Yeah, that you don't, when you're a kid, like you said, you're just like, hey, you're a kid, I'm a kid. Do you want to be friends?
Yeah.
Do you want to throw dirt at each other? Great.
Yeah.
Man. I mean, I wouldn't recommend throwing dirt at each other as adults. I don't think that would go over well, but
I would.
Oh my gosh.
I was thinking more of like a mud fight.
I feel like Lindsay's gonna make us have a mud fight on the beach today. We'll see.
Well, I don't want sand in my eyes or my hair, so I'm probably not.
Yeah. Closing thoughts or encouragement that you want to give to moms that feel like, you know, this is an area of struggle or...
I think the only thing I want to say is God sees you. And I'm just reminded of that story in the Bible. If you read the Bible, Hagar had a child. She was forced out of where she was. She thought she was going to die and have no water. And God appeared to her and essentially was like, I see you. So that's a dramatic scenario, but where you are in life, maybe you feel like, I am so unseen. I don't feel sexy. I don't feel particularly loved right now in this season, although I know I am. I don't feel particularly special. I feel like a mom that's changing diapers, going through the motions of life, and that's okay. And I'm committed to that season, and I love my kids, and I love my husband. There's a part of you that feels a little lost or unseen. Like, you are so seen by God.
Yeah.
And you are beautiful and loved.
And that's true too. Like God is your best friend. So he's a good one to reach out to if you're like, how do I get friends? And you'd be surprised at how prayer works, even just praying for friendships.
And don't be afraid to like lean on your single friends too. Like, I think it can be easy.
I'm literally leaning on you. Literally lean on your single friends.
Yes, I love her so much.
Oh man. If no one else has told you yet today,
you are doing a good job.
Thank you guys so much for watching Mom Babes and hanging out with us. I hope you feel encouraged to pursue friendships in your own life, however that looks, and that this gives you some ideas for practical ways to go in that direction. That looks cute, right?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. Like, I have no energy for anyone else or anything else. Do you want water? Are you okay?
I'm okay. Okay. I'm joking, and I was trying to pretend like I'm not.
You need some water.
I was like, how do I pretend like I'm not joking? This is what friends are for. They call you out. Are you gonna choke on camera?
You need water right now. But we were talking about you are doing a good job. Actually, we're gonna retake that because I want you to say it with me.
Okay.
So I'll say, if no one has told you yet today, and you'll say, you are doing a good job.
Okay.